Welcome to the Vagrant session. In this session, we'll be talking about what is Vagrant and how it works. We will be learning Vagrant and Linux simultaneously. First some Vagrant, then some Linux, then some Vagrant and Linux, so together. But let's see what all we are going to learn in Vagrant. So we'll talk about what is Vagrant, we'll understand the technology, we'll create VM automatically by using Vagrant. We'll see some Vagrant commands, we'll talk about Vagrant networking, provisioning by using Vagrant. We'll see how we can change RAM, CPU and disk of a virtual machine. We'll see a multi-VM Vagrant file, how to launch multiple virtual machines by using one single Vagrant command. We'll see that. And we'll talk about the documentation of Vagrant. So Vagrant really is an automation tool to manage your VM lifecycle. Right from creating a virtual machine to making any changes, deleting it, recreating it, provisioning it, anything that you do manually with your VMs, you can automate that by using Vagrant. So Vagrant in short is a VM automation tool. And why do we really need an automation tool for VM? We have to understand, VM problem first of all. We have OS installations. We have seen how long it takes to install an operating system. It's time consuming. And there's so many manual steps. Click, 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 next, done, right? It's tough to replicate if you have multi-VM setup. If you have, let's say, web server, database server, some backend servers together, and you want to recreate them again in a different machine, it's really tough to replicate. We have to go through a lot of documentation. Right, so if I give you a project to set up on the VM, you have to really document it, or I have to document and give it to you. So again, time consuming and complex steps there. With Vagrant, there is no OS installation. We install or we create VMs through images. In Vagrant, they're called as Vagrant boxes. So these are ready-made virtual machines which are available in Vagrant Cloud. So you just download it from Vagrant Cloud automatically. Vagrant will do that and bring up VMs from there. Any configuration of the virtual machine, you're going to manage it through a file called as a Vagrant file, V capital. Any VM changes you want to change the RAM size, the disk, the CPU, you can do it through the Vagrant file. And there's very easy to use Vagrant commands to manage a virtual machine. You can power on, power off, delete, create changes with simple Vagrant commands. You can also provision virtual machines operating system, like you want to execute some commands or scripts when the VM comes up. You can do that through Vagrant and so many more things. Okay, so that's how Vagrant works, its architecture. You have to create a Vagrant file, you put the VM information over there and you run the command Vagrant up. Vagrant is going to read the Vagrant file and see if the box, which is the image, is available in your local machine. If it's not available in your local machine, it will go to Vagrant Cloud, download the image, and then it is going to contact the hypervisor, which in our case is Oracle VM VirtualBox. And that's the default hypervisor. If you want to use VMware Workstation and other, you can use that as well. But the default hypervisor is Oracle VirtualBox. So it will contact the Oracle VirtualBox and give the information of creating the VM, and then the VM will get created. You can create one or many VM by using Vagrant. The simple to use Vagrant commands like Vagrant halt, Vagrant reload, Vagrant destroy. And when you reload, it's going to read the Vagrant file when it's coming up, so any changes will be applied. If you want to log into a Linux VM, you can do Vagrant SSH. And like that, there are many more commands. So let's see what all we need for the Vagrant. Well, you need to enable VT in the BIOS, which I talked about in the previous video. Vagrant tool, you have to download and install Vagrant tool. Hypervisor, you need like Oracle VM VirtualBox and command line interface. And I'm going to use git bash. If you're having MacBook, you can use your terminal, or if you're Linux, you can again use your terminal. If you have Windows, do not use command prompt, that's too slow and old. Use git bash or anything similar like Cygwin. So if you have all these tools in place, but we need to just find the right box name from Vagrant Cloud. We're going to create a project directory at any location we want, and we'll create a Vagrant file there with a command, and we'll say Vagrant up, and it will bring up our VM. That's simple it is. And then if you want, you can log in by using Vagrant SSH commands. Alright then, let's get started. Okay, if you're missing any of the tool, Vagrant, Git Bash, anything, install them or go through the prerequisite video and see how you can install it. I'm going to now open Git Bash and I'm going to use this CLI to execute my Vagrant commands. Vagrant is not graphical, Vagrant is a command line tool, so you need to have a CLI. Now, nice thing about Git Bash is you can execute Linux commands in your Windows machine. That's fancy. Okay, so I'm going to go to F drive. That's how we do cd/f/. And in this drive, I'm going to create a directory called as Vagrant VMs. You can create directory anywhere with any name you want. And those are Linux command mkdir cd ls. So I created directory with command mkdir. I get into this. You can use pwd command to see where you are located anytime. So I'm in F drive inside that Vagrant VMs directory. In this, I'm going to create another directory called as Centos 7. Any name you want, you can create. And I'll also create another directory saying Ubuntu 18. Again, I'm using this name just for the reference. You can use any name. I should have two directory. I get into Centos 7 directory. I'm going to now clear the screen. Okay, now I'm going to issue a Vagrant command which will create a Vagrant file for me. And the command is Vagrant init. With this, I'm going to provide the box name or the VM image name. And I'm going to find that out from Vagrant Cloud. So let's go to Vagrant Cloud. You can just Google, say Vagrant Cloud, hit enter, and you should find it. That's the link. Come on. Okay, yeah. So these are the boxes or images if you want to say, but in Vagrant we call them as boxes, Vagrant boxes. These are ready-made virtual machines which Vagrant will download for you and create VMs from them. So look for what you want. Let's say I'm looking for CentOS. So I'm going to search for CentOS. So there's CentOS/7, there's Ubuntu CentOS 6.7, and I'm going to go with this one, Girlingai CentOS 7. And I also recommend you also use the same box, but you can use anything for time being, but later we'll need this box. So let's copy its name, Girlingai/CentOS 7. Let's go back to our Git Bash and paste that. Okay, our command is ready. Let's hit enter. Vagrant init and the box name. Okay, it printed some information. If you do ls, you should see a file called as a Vagrant file. And if you want, you can read this file by doing cat and the file name. And it should print that file information. If you scroll up, you should see one setting in this file, config.vm.box and the box name. Now, if that's too much CLI, let's see it from the file explorer. So we have in the F drive or Vagrant VMs directory that we created, CentOS 7. Vagrant file, you can say right click and open it with Notepad++. So that could be a better view to your Vagrant file. So the setting starts from here, from line number 8 and completes at line number 70 there, where it says end. It's a Ruby script. We'll understand this file later, but I just want to show you one thing, config.vm.box equal to the box name. Okay, that is fine. Let's go back to Git Bash. Let me clear the screen. So you have to just say Vagrant init box name, and once it creates the Vagrant file, you can say Vagrant up. Run this command, and this command is going to read the Vagrant file in this directory and create a VM for us or for you. But that may take a longer time. Initially, it is going to download a box, but the box download is just one-time work. Once your box is downloaded, then creating VMs from that will be very quick and easy. But first, when you do Vagrant up, it's going to download the box, and that may take some time based on your internet speed. Okay, it completed successfully, and we should see now a VM on our virtual box. And you really don't need to open the console and connect to it. You can just do a Vagrant SSH from the same directory. You have to be in the same directory where you created the VM. And I do Vagrant SSH and I'm in. Clear the screen. And I'm in the VM. You can find that out by looking at the prompt. It logged in as the Vagrant user. If you run the command who am I, it will tell you what user you are, which is Vagrant. And you can exit from that. That's it for now here. And you can power off your VM by just saying Vagrant halt. Again, I'm in the same directory. I am not in the VM. I did exit. I came out. You can look at the prompt. I do Vagrant halt and it will power off my VM. Okay, that's off. You see how easy it is to create VMs through Vagrant. And now I'm going to do cd ... go one level up in the directory tree. And if you're new to command line, it's taking time. Don't worry, you'll get used to it. Once we get into Linux, we'll do lots of practice on commands. Okay. So as of now, you should be again in this directory, f vagrant vms or wherever you want. And I go into Ubuntu 18 directory now. I'll create the next VM. Vagrant init. Again, the box name. So let's go to Vagrant Cloud and find our box with the name Ubuntu. You want Ubuntu 18. Okay, so we have different flavors again for Ubuntu, also different version of Ubuntu. Okay, so there Ubuntu /trust64, that's Ubuntu 14, that's Ubuntu 12, that's Ubuntu 16. Where's Ubuntu 18? That's generic /Ubuntu 18. You know what, I'll search with Ubuntu 18 name. Okay, that's official Ubuntu. Okay, directly from the Ubuntu vendor. Okay, so Ubuntu /Bionics 64. That's what we'll use. Ubuntu /Bionic 64. Validate the name once again. In case if you give wrong name, you can anytime edit the Vagrant file. Okay, just open the Vagrant file, make the change, save it. Okay, and I'm going to say Vagrant up now. So it will bring up my second Ubuntu VM. Okay, our Ubuntu VM is up. You can do Vagrant SSH to log in. You have to be in the same directory. And we are in. Again, you got logged in as Vagrant user. I'm going to exit now from here. Okay, look at the prompt to understand where you are. So now I'm in my Ubuntu machine, in my Windows machine. And I can use the Vagrant commands from here. If I do Vagrant halt, it will power off my VM. And I'm just opening VirtualBox to show you. You really don't need to now open VirtualBox. You can manage everything through Vagrant. That's powered off. If you don't want it, you can delete it. You can say Vagrant destroy and it should delete your VM. So it asks a question. Yes, I want to delete it. And you should see it will be gone. Okay, CentOS 7. Let's go to CentOS 7 directory. VMs, CentOS 7. Now, if you issue Vagrant up command here, if the VM is already there, if it's powered off, it's just going to power it on. If it's not there, it will create it. So if I do Vagrant up, the VM should come up. And there, it's up. For some reason, if you want to reboot, which we'll need later, so you can run the command Vagrant reload to reboot it. So it's coming up. In any case, whatever commands you're running, make sure you're in the right directory. So whatever command I issue is for this VM. Okay, you can run the history command in git bash and you can see the previously executed commands. So I just want to reiterate what we did. Vagrant init and the box name to create the Vagrant file. Vagrant up to create the VM. Vagrant SSH to log in. Vagrant halt to power off. Okay, we did the same for the Ubuntu. We got into Ubuntu directory. Vagrant init, box name, Vagrant up to bring up. Vagrant SSH to log in, halt to power off, destroy to delete, reload to reboot. We'll later get into Vagrant more in detail. We'll read and make changes in the Vagrant file. But that should be all in this video. If you're done, you can just power off, or you can delete or destroy your VM. And you know how easy it is to create VMs now. You have to just use these two commands. All right. And we don't need this VMs that we created manually, so I'm going to delete them. So if you're done here, join me in the next video.